The Edmonton Oilers were forced to deal with a number of injuries in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Welcome back, everyone. My name is Dr. Stephen Wilson, and here on this channel we analyze the science of sports injuries. So if that's the type of content that interests you, then please consider liking and subscribing to this channel. A few weeks ago, it was announced that Oilers forward Hyman did suffer a wrist injury, and he was out for the remainder of the playoffs. And in addition to, on Thursday afternoon, it was announced that Nugent-Hopkins, the Oilers forward, he was dealing with a broken hand throughout the Stanley Cup Finals. We're going to take a look at exactly what both injuries mean and what the future ramifications might look like for both players. We're looking at the anatomy of the right hand. We can appreciate how many bones there are in your hand, and it could have been a number of any one of these bones or multiple bones that could have been affected, and the soft tissue around that bone will additionally be affected. We're looking at a fracture to the bone. We weren't told exactly which bone or what type of fracture occurred, and as in addition to swelling and most likely a type of sprain to the soft tissue surrounding that joint or bone, that would have put Nugent-Hopkins in a significant amount of discomfort and certainly limited his play throughout the Stanley Cup Finals. And of course, in the Western Conference Final, Oilers forward Hyman was ruled out of the upcoming series in the Stanley Cup Final due to a fractured wrist and a dislocation to his wrist as well. When we look at the replay here, we see marchment of the Stars coming across by the blue line. He's going to make contact here with Hyman. We can see Hyman's right wrist. It's going to buckle under the weight, the force. There's a lot of energy that Marchment is bringing in his body check, which ends up contacting Hyman's right wrist, and his hand buckles his hand. There's a lot of force going through Hyman's upper extremity there. It's going to bend his wrist back, which ultimately ended up in a dislocation and a fracture to Hyman's right wrist, which was reported in the media a couple weeks ago. When you suffer a dislocation and a fracture simultaneous in the wrist joint, often it's what we would call a Barton's fracture, which occurs when the radius, that's the long, larger forearm bone here, the distal end or the bottom end of that, typically that's where the fracture occurs. And then in addition, you also have a dislocation of what's called the radiocarpal joint, typically with the lunate or the scaphoid, and that is going to occur right there. A joint dislocation occurs when there's a significant amount of energy or force that pushes the bone out of place in the joint, and that is going to disrupt the connective tissue, the joint capsule, the ligamentous tissue in that area that's holding the joint together. There's a significant enough force to push through that connective tissue, moving the bone out of joint and subsequently fracturing the end of the radius here on the play. Hyman did undergo surgery. I would be very surprised if Hyman is able to make a full recovery by the time training camp rolls around in September for the Oilers. I would see Hyman making a full recovery into the 2025 season, perhaps not for training camp. Subsequently, Nugent-Hopkins, I would expect him to make a full recovery. You know, he was able to play 6 games with a fractured hand. He will likely make a full recovery for training camp. Thank you very much for watching today. I really do appreciate your time. Please be well.